Yet gunpowder battles were already to a marked degree more impersonal than those of the age of edged weapons. The wearing of uniforms, however variegated, however splendid, diminished the individual identity of the combatants, which has been one of the principal functions of medieval panoply to emphasize. So, too, did the imposition of a rigid chain of command, which robbed subordinates of that independence by which the headstrong nobleman had always set store, while the new insistence on drill reduced the individual soldier's status to that of a mechanical unit in the order of battle. Battle itself, because of these inbuilt mechanisms, steadily acquired throughout the packet passage of the gunpowder age a mechanical dynamic of its own. The action of the artillery, firing systemically over several hundred yards at blocks of human beings, who the gunners perceived only as differently colored masses, being sufficient of itself to keep a battle in progress, whether or not the armies were in intimate confrontation. Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys come in. I was just reading a little bit more of Face of Battle by John Keegan. He was specifically talking about gunpowder and the way it changed war from edged weapons. No longer was there any heroism in battle. No longer was there any even human or humanity in the battle. What he's talking about here, the inbuilt mechanisms, the firing of the artillery, the mechanical nature of battle. No longer was it a man on a horse with a sword riding into battle, heroically saving the day. It was a man with a cannon firing it at an angle at people he couldn't even see except for blobs of color on the horizon. When the blobs of color stop moving, that's when you know you've won. It kind of ended the whole age of heroism, the whole glory of war, the glory of battle. You could just shoot someone from far away, like the Americans did during Desert Storm. But that's history, and that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about what's going on in Bitcoin today. Today is July 24th, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is up 6.27% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 8,203, a high of 8,353, and a low of 7,651. That's $1 for 12,201 Satoshis. Meet Honey Miner, the app that lets you earn Bitcoin with a laptop again. This ought to be really funny. New mining software, a taste of cryptocurrency's early days. Oh, it's a dynamic mining pool running the app with your GPU card when it isn't in use processing images or videos. The pool focuses on, again, why does it say in the headline you get Bitcoin when it focuses on mining these other GPU friendly currencies and then it converts them into Bitcoin? So you can mine Ethereum and other things and then get Bitcoin. So yeah. Any laptop you aren't using all the way up to a rig that you run is automatically doing the most profitable calculation. Once again, people just can't let this mining thing go. I hate to tell you guys, but there was a point, gosh, I want to say 7, 8 years ago now, where you could have made money running your computer. That was it. That was the point. After that point, it kind of went pro. Even the Bits Be Trippin' guys, I saw their latest video. They have an incredible server room. They have server room air conditioning. They have server room racks. They're big time. We're all small time. We're never going to be able to just put a miner in our front room and make money with it. I certainly tried. All it does is play loud fan sounds during your movies. It's no good. And this thing, I really don't think CoinDesk does any checking or work on this. It kind of just seems like an app that'll run in your browser and make your computer run slow. And it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to get a lot of Bitcoin out of this. It's just mining is not there. Buy some Bitcoin, buy some fractions of some Bitcoin, and just let it ride. HODL, right? It's much better than mining. Oh, one guy in the chat makes money mining. Well, call us in. Call in, chat guy. Show us your spreadsheet. How long have you been doing it? Oh, wow. 6 months. It's amazing. Call me back in 3 years. Bitcoin just hit 8,000. Here's what's pushing it up. Could be the ETF. Let's see. The price. It's the ETF. Many have attributed the recent bullishness around Bitcoin to the expected approval of a Bitcoin exchange traded fund, an ETF. There we go. That's what we talked about weeks ago. We said one of the only ways for Bitcoin to turn this around was an ETF. An ETF means that thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of new people will be able to buy Bitcoin through their already existing stock market accounts. They'll be able to invest their pre tax money in Bitcoin and probably their retirement funds and so forth. They won't actually have to hold the cryptocurrency themselves. That will be handled by the ETF. Other ETFs exist for gold and silver and other assets that you don't have to carry around anymore. You can just buy the stock. So it's on its way. And many people have been saying that the altcoin markets are down and that the Bitcoin dominance is up, which it is up at 47%, looking very good. But that doesn't mean that the altcoins won't bounce back and follow Bitcoin all the way up. As we can see from the very popular and easy to read out loud as everyone else does it, Coin Market Cap website, we can see Ethereum's up 2%. Ripple up 1.5%, Bitcoin Cash up 4.5%, EOS up 4.3%, Stellar up 4%, Litecoin up 3%, Cardano up 1%, IOTA up a quarter of a point, and Tether holding steady at 0.04%. That's the top 10 in cryptocurrencies today. Meanwhile, the SEC delays the decision on Direxion's Bitcoin ETF until September. But as they were saying in the chat, there are at least 2 or 3 other cryptocurrency ETFs that are pushing forward. Only the Direxion one has been slowed down. And just in general, I would say this market has ETF feature or ETF fever. They're out there. They want the ETF. They want it so bad they can taste it. Everyone now is making their bets and investing based upon the fact that Bitcoin will have an ETF, yet another feather in the fledgling cryptocurrencies cap, yet another way for it to move forward and take more money from these finance people. We all know what that really looks like, the picture, so you can all see, so we'll know what's really happening here. It's important to know what's really going on. And what's really happening is that Bitcoin is slowly taking over the world, as everyone expected, as everyone foresaw. Can't copy and paste today. That makes using the computer easy. Oh, good job, computer. Oh, well, whatever. I was going to show you a picture of the Trojan horse, but you can picture it now. It's a Trojan horse. There it is. Let's keep going. We looked at the mainstream media. It's all about the price again. Bitcoin crosses 8,000 for the first time in 2 months, for the first time since May. All you do is you put the price of Bitcoin in the headline, and then you put the time zone. So you say, oh, it's up 20% in a week for the first time in 2 months, for the first time since May. Good job, mainstream media. Try learning something about Bitcoin, and then you'll know why it keeps doing this. You keep being confused. Are the crazy rides of Bitcoin controlled by the invisible hand? Presumably, the invisible hand of the market could be somebody else's hand. Bitcoin gains $500 as green shoots of recovery. Yes, express.co.uk, the tabloid that said Bitcoin was dead several times. It's not dead. Bitcoin not dead. Tell the mainstream media. The 8K rally could be overstretched. Maybe so. Let's see what's going on from CoinDesk, from the man who owns no Bitcoin or anything else. Omkar Godboll, who just lost another 5 to 10% by not owning any Bitcoin. You got to wonder if he's holding dollars or rupees or what. Let's go straight to the view. Bitcoin's break above $8,000 has bolstered the already bullish technical setup. However, overbought conditions could cap the upside around 8150. We're already over that in the next few days. A pullback to the ascending bullish 10-day moving average, currently at 7,570, and seen sloping upward to 7,700 in the next 48 hours, cannot be ruled out, but will likely end up refueling the Bitcoin freight train for a sustained move towards the 200-day moving average of 8,676. Only a daily close below 7,221 would abort the bullish view. I don't see any signs of 5,000 or any signs of 1,200. Sure doesn't look like it. Looks like Bitcoin's going back up. And just wait till the ETF is released. Check out the Bitcoin Las Vegas meetup at bitcoinlasvegas.org. We've got another meetup this Thursday, July 26th at Timbers Bar and Grill in Las Vegas. Join us now. And thanks to everyone who's been supporting me on Twitter. I put out this video into the Twitter. It's gotten almost 4,000 views on Twitter thanks to your likes and retweets, making this possible. Hey, I can even retweet my own tweet. Why not? But we were downtown Las Vegas a couple of days ago, handing out some Bitcoin flyers, spreading the word about Bitcoin. If you check out my Twitter, you can find the links to download the PDFs or the images, even the PSD Photoshop files. You can make your own version of this flyer. Who will be the first to hand out Bitcoin flyers in their neighborhood and film it, sending it to me, Mad Bitcoins, on Twitter? Will it be you? Will it be you? Will it be that guy? Also, this new guy here said Bitcoin would be over 8,000 next week. He called it, totally called it. He doesn't have any Bitcoin, but he totally called it. But we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines today. What's on your mind about Bitcoin? Is it back? Is this the bounce we've been waiting for? Is it time to buy all the typewriters you've ever wanted? How many typewriters should a person have? I watched a couple of documentaries yesterday. I watched City of Gold. It was on Hulu. It was recommended. It was about a food critic named Jonathan Gold who walks all over Los Angeles, eating at all the taco trucks, all of the neighborhood places. He'll go anywhere for the good food. And then he writes these beautiful columns about it. He just has a kind of a Shakespearean gift for language. He has a beautiful way of describing the food and the community and what the food makes him think about. Very cool documentary, City of Gold. Interesting character. He used to be a cello player. He was totally obsessed with the cello and classical music. Then he started writing about Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre during the 80s. Something about his musical education allowed him to hear that as music and to not dismiss it like so many critics did. He was an early celebrator of hip hop. And then he became a food critic, and he's pretty much the heart of Los Angeles. So check that out. It's called City of Gold on Hulu. I also watched another documentary called American Typewriter, and it's about a small shop in Berkeley, California that's still hanging on fixing typewriters. And it's about a couple of guys that have been just fixing typewriters their whole lives, and they're hoping that it comes around. And towards the end, kind of a spoiler, they got a website, and the hipsters made a path to their door. And I don't know how business is, but I checked online. They are still open. Very cool. Definitely rooting for the typewriter guys in Berkeley, California. If I was closer, I would go check out their shop and probably end up with another freaking typewriter. I was watching the documentary. I started browsing eBay. Always a mistake. Just stay off eBay. If you don't want to take home any vintage junk, stay the heck off eBay, because otherwise you're going to become a vintage junk collector like your host here. But yeah, I fell for a nice looking Royal. It would be the first manual typewriter I've ever had. Manual typewriter is like a machine, right? You push down the key, and somehow it uses that power that you put into the key to move the lever to strike the paper, and then the key comes back somehow. It's an amazing machine, almost a Rube Goldbergian, right? But they made them to manufacture, and they tightened the design, and they really made a heck of a thing out of these typewriters. So yeah, I pulled the trigger on that one probably too early. Later in the documentary, Tom Hanks started recommending this Silent Smith Corona, and now I got my eye on one of those. They're not very much. They're like $70 for a typewriter. Mainly the cost is shipping. You're going to pay 20, $30 to get that hunk of metal shipped to you, and then it's going to sit on a shelf or in your closet. But I'm trying not to buy that one. I'm trying not to buy this beautiful 80s looking typewriter. It's got silver and blue, big black keys, white lettering. Looks really nice. And then, well, I had to pull the trigger on a cherry red IBM Selectric One, similar to the typewriter that Hunter S. Thompson used to type on. So that one I overpaid. I negotiated the guy down a little bit, but I overpaid. But it was fun. It was one of the only fire engine red IBM Selectric ones left on eBay. Says it's in working condition. Hoping for that. Also hoping that the small portable, well, kind of portable, luggable manual Royal will work out. Then I'll have an automatic and a manual uh, for all my typing needs. They're right. If I keep working on my typewriters, will I be able to mine Bitcoin? According to articles like this, I could use my typewriter to mine Ethereum, then trade the Ethereum for Bitcoin. Yeah, if I type like 100,000 characters over and over again, the energy generated by the typewriter would, help us out. So good luck with that one. But you can call us right now on Skype, World Crypto Network. Got some people in the chat this morning. Let's see what's going on. Smith says there'll be a bounce back to the death cross, then down to 5,000. 2 bullish weeks is not a bull market. So he is fighting against the idea that we're bullish all of a sudden. I still think it has a lot to do with the SEC announcement and with the ETFs. I think that the ETFs are the thing that will save us. And if not the ETFs, the hype from the ETFs. He does have a good point. If you're following the classic rules, buy the rumor, sell the news. This is the rumor section. In a couple of months, if we don't have an ETF, a lot of people will probably be looking to sell because they bought the rumor. So let's see. This guy's alts have been sold. Now they're just hedges. The SEC chairman said, take it slowly. He says the ETF is not going through this year. According to a gentleman with China in they may be Japanese characters. I have no way of knowing. But we're just reading the chat here on Bitcoin Talk Show, seeing if you guys want to call in, getting ready for the 9 o'clock. So, see what's going to happen at 9 o'clock. They say the other guy disagrees in the chat. We have some back and forth going here. He says death crosses, moving averages, etc., will get bought through straight to 40K this year. And it does kind of feel like that. I mean, if I can get up a Bitcoin wisdom here, not give away all my browser history, but it seemed to me every time that we start to go down, there was a big buy. We're seeing actual volume here. If we look below the line at this volume chart, we got a big green there, pretty good size green there. Going back to here is when we used to have the big reds, big red, medium red, small red, and some small reds. So we're just not seeing the same kind of big reds. But again, this is a pretty small sample size. If we go back further, I don't know. We'll still see. And again, remember this chart only shows us the past. It doesn't show us the future at all. So let's see what else is going on. Votes for Donald Vladimir meetings once a week. I don't know. I don't think that's what caused it to go up. If you ask me, that mad Bitcoins guy went down to the square and handed out flyers. The next day, it turned around. Pretty big, pretty big. It just happened there. So I don't know. But we're seeing if we can get some calls here on Skype. Otherwise, I'll have to find something else to talk about. Let's see. I watched another movie yesterday. It was a 3-movie day. I know, epic, totally epic. Very few people do a 3-movie day. But I bought that movie pass thing, and it turns out the clock's been ticking on me for the last 10 days, and I hadn't seen any movies. So I got to try to get my money out of that movie pass thing. So I saw Hotel Transylvania 3. No, it was free. It's a kids movie. It's so funny though. For a kids movie, I walk in and the animation is great. I hadn't seen a computer animated movie on the big screen. There's so much depth to the characters now with the shading and the lighting. They're just able to do it so well. Of course, every scene was a chase scene. There's lots of chase scenes. 3D animation is great for chase scenes. And it was funny though, because I saw all my favorite comedians were in the movie. Adam Sandler played the vampire. Bill Burr played some wolf guy. David Spade was an invisible man. It was funny to see all these comedians making their money doing these doing these animated films, and they're up to number 3. So they're really kicking it in on this Hotel Transylvania film. All right, people texting me all over. That's great. So yeah, 3 movies yesterday. Don't know about today. Thinking about watching Roger Rabbit. I got the Blu-ray recently. Got some old 80s movies, 90s movies to watch. Roger Rabbit, E.T., and stuff like that. Gotta get caught up, right? I already saw the, uh I already saw the Mister Rogers documentary, so now I'm just waiting for the Mister Rogers, live action movie, with Tom Hanks, typewriter lover, who also, like myself, went to Sacramento State University. Tom Hanks dropped out, became a famous actor instead. Maybe a good idea. Maybe it worked out, but he's definitely the most famous person to drop out of my alma mater. And they're talking in the chat. They want to talk about the new Star Trek trailer. I don't know if the audience is into Discovery, uh, Price Discovery, maybe Star Trek Discovery, maybe a little less. The first season was pretty good. It got a little messy at the end. They had to resort to some Deus Ex Machinas and some lazy writing, but they wrote themselves into what looks like a really good situation. They've run into the old Enterprise with Christopher Pike in command, and you know what that means. That means Majel Barrett Roddenberry should be his number one. But I heard, she's passed, I believe, and Mr. Roddenberry's passed. I heard they got Rebecca Romaine, not Stamos anymore, to be the number one. That sounds good. And then Christopher Pike, and still no sign of Spock. But I think the plot's going to be about finding Spock, and fingers crossed that they get Zachary Quinto from the movies to play Spock. This would lead them to a good chance of getting Kirk to play Kirk. I didn't like the new movies, but I kind of like the casting. Sad thing about Chekhov, but pretty good casting in the new movies. Plot, dialogue could have been better. The third one really started to get it. I thought the third new Star Trek movie felt like a big old Star Trek episode. And I think that's because Scotty wrote it, and Scotty wrote it so Scotty could get the girl. So that was pretty fun. I don't know if they're gonna make a fourth one after that, or or they could always spin the Discovery series into the Star Trek TV series that they've always wanted to make, with the new cast. But I don't think they signed the new cast to a TV deal, something like that. So, oh, people haven't seen the first season. You work for the show. Come on. If you haven't seen the first season, yeah, I probably gave you some spoilers. Yeah, side note, they say Star Wars Clone Wars is returning for a new season. Uh, I've never really watched it. I've watched like 1 or 2 episodes. I think it's kinda cool, Clone Wars. I think it's mainly for kids, but the animation looks pretty good. I don't know. It's been tough to be into Star Trek since they kicked out all the books, right? I read all the Star Trek books back in the 90s, and they were great. I wish they'd continued with that part of the story instead of this ridiculous Last Jedi, other stories that they went down the line. There were some great stories in there about Admiral Thrawn, and he was essentially kind of the white suited guy that was in the Last Jedi, but he had character in the books, and he was an admiral with an entire fleet out at the end of the galaxy. And it took, a couple of years for him to hear that the empire had fallen. So he rolls back into town and fights the New Republic. And it's the New Republic versus this old admiral and his fleet. It was a pretty great story, much better than the current crappy Star Wars movies. If you really want to go down that line, I can tell you how bad the new Star Wars movie is. But a lot of people like it. A lot of people might not have seen it yet. So you don't know things like how hyperspace is now a weapon. Oh, well. They say there's lots of dark Disney movies coming out. Of course, that reminds me of the James Gunn situation. A lot of people are coming to his support. A lot of people are saying, Disney, what's the deal here? You fired him for tweets that were already out there when you hired him. The hypocrites here are you. The ones that aren't making any sense are you, and the ones that are being manipulated by right wing propagandists, it's you, Disney. The ones with the bad values is you. The ones that don't forgive human beings is you. Just like with ABC, throwing that old lady out. Poor old lady on prescription drugs, never said a bad thing in her life except for the one time she sang the national anthem bad. But we got to get rid of her on the first day and the first hour. We don't have any forgiveness in our society anymore, especially with everyone having these histories. Everyone has these histories on Facebook that could destroy them at any time, blah, blah, blah. So I just don't know. And they say, yeah, they're saying in the chat, Walt Disney made some questionable choices as well. And there was a great tweet yesterday that showed a bunch of Disney's old films. And maybe we should punish Disney for their old films and continue holding them responsible for mistakes they made during the time. But that's not the what we're going to do, right? That's not what we're going to do. But we do have the phone lines open here on Skype at World Crypto Network. I'm going to try to keep the phone lines open for a little bit longer. It is 9 o'clock on the West Coast. Usually a good time to have a show. There are about 158 live viewers who aren't calling in to share their views on the Bitcoin price. Is the Bitcoin rally for real? Forbes asks. People in the chat say it's not for real. They say it's going to bounce up and bounce back down. But go ahead and give us a call in. Tell us about it live. All I can see here in the mainstream media is price, 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 and some price. Here's a good one. Bitcoin platform operator pleads guilty to lying about the hack. The operator of two defunct cryptocurrency services pleaded guilty to charges that he stole customers' deposits and lied to investigators. Doesn't look good. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dan calling from Oregon.
Hey, Dan. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Since you didn't have much else to talk about, I thought I would call in, talk about Lightning Network a little bit.
Sure. What do you think about Lightning?
Network is looking to be. So the question was always, how is Bitcoin going to scale properly? And that was always a big problem in my mind for many, many years. But seeing all the development with Lightning Network recently, it's appearing as though Lightning Network is going to solve a lot of the scaling problems that we were worried about. I don't know if it's the perfect solution or not, but I think maybe a more perfect solution will be created down the road. But I'm seeing a lot of good success with LN, and I think that the apps that are going to be built on LN are going to be the killer apps that everyone's been waiting for. So I think Bitcoin's about to shoot up big time in the next 2-3 years. I mean, you got the ETF approval happening sometime in the next few years. You've got the halvening in 2020. You've got the Lightning Network becoming strong and secure, and all the apps that are going to start to be built on layer 2. So everything, in my opinion, the bullishness is just out of control right now. If you've got any fiat currency, you should be buying Bitcoin with it right now, in my opinion. I mean, for God's sakes, Charlie Lee is telling people to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I've definitely what Andy Hoffman's been saying lately about the fundamentals of Bitcoin, that the fundamentals are sound, the technical problems are being solved. We're moving forward on things like Lightning Network and Schnorr signatures and other technological advancements that the other coins simply can't touch. None of them are anywhere close to Bitcoin on the roadmap. They pretty much, like you say, I agree. I think they've solved scaling with Lightning. What I really like about this solution is that it's backwards compatible. If you like the current Bitcoin network and you don't really care about paying, maybe $5, $10 a fee to send your Bitcoin around, especially if you're sending around Lambo money. If you're going to buy a Lambo for $5 in fees, I don't think you care. So that's what's great about it, is you can continue using Bitcoin if you don't like Lightning. And then by the time Lightning's ready, you can just casually shift over and start spending $5, $10 here and there using the Lightning Network for small transactions, the Bitcoin network for large transactions. So yeah, I don't think anybody else can touch it. Altcoin wise, fiat currency wise, PayPal, Apple Pay, all these kind of systems, they don't seem to hold a candle to Bitcoin. So I think a lot of people are learning this. I think we had the big shakeout. Institutional money was trying to chase all of us normal people out of the market. And certainly they chased a little bit out. Everybody sold a little bit probably on the way down or at some point. has a little bit less now, but it's good as long as you're in a safe position with some fiat on some side and some investment on the other side, and your investment goes up, but your fiat's always there keeping you safe in case everything goes the other direction. So I think it's looking really good.
Yeah, I used to be almost 100% Bitcoin maximalist, and then in the last couple of years, I'm not quite as much of a 100% maximalist. I got into a couple altcoins here and there just to try to make some money, and I think maybe couple of them have a future. But I used to say that you should have at least 80% of your crypto assets in Bitcoin, but I recently, in the last 6 months or so, I actually increased that number to 90%. You should not have more than 10% of your crypto assets in an altcoin, period. No altcoin's worth that. You should definitely have at least 90% of your cryptocurrency holdings in Bitcoin, period. Like in my opinion. The only other two coins really that I'm liking for the long term right now are actually Litecoin and Vertcoin, mostly because they're just proof of work coins. They're clones of Bitcoin, and they use a different algorithm for I guess, the encryption part of it, a script, and then the other one that Vertcoin uses. I just feel like those, to me, they're just like a backup. It's almost like if some fatal flaw were found with SHA-256, then we could all move very easily, maybe over to a Litecoin or a Vertcoin and still have all the security that we always had. I've also come to the realization, though, too, the whole argument that ASIC mining is a centralized is actually flawed. I'm pretty sure it's looking like to me that ASIC mining is actually the more decentralized type of proof of work mining, because graphic card mining, there's only two companies that really make graphics cards, and also when you don't, it also creates less of an incentive for the graphics card owner because they can repurpose that hardware for something else. When you buy a Bitcoin miner, you really can only use it for one thing, and that's to mine a SHA-256 coin, which is probably going to be Bitcoin. And so what that creates, in my opinion, is when all that hardware investment occurs in the ASIC miners, it creates a floor on the price of Bitcoin. Basically, the price will theoretically never go below the cost of the hardware, or the market cap will theoretically never go below the cost of the hardware used to mine it. With graphics cards, it's different. You don't really have that protection. So, but the thing with Lightning Network and the atomic swaps that are going to be capable of doing you'll be able to atomically swap between Bitcoin, Litecoin, Vertcoin. In my opinion, it creates almost a more stronger, if you're looking for actual strength from hackers or strength from let's say a government trying to take over cryptocurrency, I believe that being able to atomically swap on Lightning Network between those three coins would be amazing, because if one of them gets attacked or if a flaw is found in one of them, you've still got the two others that you can just flow right over into. So I don't know, but obviously Bitcoin is the king. It's always going to be the king. Everybody just needs to recognize that and stop, acting like, their coin is better or whatever, because that's just a bunch of nonsense.
Well, I definitely agree with you on your technical and logical argument. I used to be 90-10 Bitcoin, or even 99% 1% kind of thing. And recently I've opened it up more the other direction. You're going back towards 90-10. I'm heading more towards 80-20. I
Okay.
just think I keep looking at these markets, and I keep being on the sideline disbelieving, right? I'm the disbeliever. I'm like, oh, I don't believe in Ethereum. I don't believe in Litecoin. I don't believe in whatever. And these crazy things keep going up, right? So I don't necessarily like any of them or believe in them technically or logically. What I'm betting on, and I'm pretty clear about this, I'm betting on hype. I believe
Right.
that the hype of these crazy altcoins will cause them, at least in the short term. I'm not trying to hold any of these long. If they go up 50% or whatever, I'm selling 10 or 20%. I'm going to take some profits. I'm trying to play it right. And again, if I lose all my money in the altcoins, I'm kind of okay with that too. I still have some Bitcoin. But yeah, I would bet more on hype. For me, the ones I'm
Hello?
Sorry, I muted myself. Space bar. No, I'm looking at based on hype, I'm looking at EOS and Stellar. So those are my two. I would choose those over Litecoin and Vertcoin. While I'm agreeing with you, I think Litecoin and Vertcoin are technically better. They're like logically, I would choose them. They're better. But
Right.
betting on hype, I feel the hype in these two coins. They're saying other ones in the chat. People like Digibyte keeps telling me about it.
Yeah.
Digibyte's pretty cheap. It's like 4 cents, so I don't really care that much. I'll give that a try. But it's really hard on a lot of these things. You have to buy things you don't believe in. You have to buy things that probably aren't going to work. And if you buy them at 4 cents and you sell them at 80 cents, then you get more cents. So
Yeah.
it goes. And yeah. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, and always remember, everyone should always remember to always value your altcoins in Bitcoin, not in fiat. And then the other thing too is Ethereum. I wanted to talk about real quick. I've always been against Ethereum, and I still am. And like you said, the hype bubble. I mean, obviously, I missed out on that one. I mean, I got to ride the Bitcoin wave, but I never got to ride the Ethereum wave. But what I will say about Ethereum, and anybody that's into it or really likes it or has a lot of Ethereum or a lot of ERC20 tokens on Ethereum, you need to be aware that at some point Ethereum is literally going to crash. It is not. It does not scale properly. It is actually poorly designed. It's very poorly designed. It's only made to really last for, I'd say, a maximum of a 10-year period of time. The more people that use it, the worse it gets. So if people really did, if there really was a great D app created that everyone wanted to use on Ethereum, it would crash for sure. I mean, you can't even sync a full node. Eventually, there will only be a few nodes in large data centers, and then even those will start to fail. And I mean, think of the disaster that is going to happen when every ERC20 token is nuked, when all Ethereum projects are nuked at once because Ethereum itself crashes. Boy, that's not going to be a pretty day.
Well, I agree with you. I just don't know when that day is going to be. And
Oh, by several years from
I'm
now.
not holding my breath short in that thing. So
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But I mean, yeah, it's. I know this is one of the things I figured out about cryptocurrency is that you can create a blockchain project and it can go on for years and years before the scaling issues occur or appear. And so people are really able to get away with a lot of scams around these blockchains because they can get away with it for so long. But then eventually the chickens always come home to roost.
well, and that really does seem like the thing with Ethereum. I know when it came out, I was pretty critical of the way it was designed, the way that it had infinite number of units, it had a pre-mine, it had a centralized group and an organization. It just had all of the hallmarks of previous scams. But it turned out that this time, at least short term, it wasn't. So yeah, I don't know long term how that's going to go, and
Well,
we'll
all
just
the
have to wait and
projects that
see.
are getting their tokens off of ERC20 and onto their own blockchain like EOS, they should be doing that soon. I mean, get your own tokens, get everyone switched over so that you're not sitting on top of Ethereum anymore. Because that's just like I said. I mean, that's going to be a disaster of epic proportions. I mean, when that all goes, and of course, it's going to the media is going to blame Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin had nothing to do with it. I mean, they're going to go after all cryptocurrency when this all happens. So Ethereum, once again, it's just like, oh well, it's like, what are you going to do? People are just going to do what they're going to do, and everyone's just going to have to live and learn from it.
It's had some pretty negative aspects for our community. It brought in all the get rich quickers. It made them all rich. And then you're right. If Ethereum goes down, if it crashes, it'll be taken against Bitcoin. We had that recent decision where they said Ethereum and Bitcoin are not securities. Even if we'd gotten 50-50 and he'd said, oh, Bitcoin's not a security, but Ethereum is, oh, the market would have went nuts and it would have been a huge thing. So yeah, the Ethereum thing is definitely an albatross around Bitcoin's neck, and we're just going to have to keep going with it. So,
Yeah, I think just recognizing that it'll someday occur and then just being prepared for the situation will be good enough. I mean, it's going to be one of the greatest buying opportunities probably at that point, because most likely what will happen is there'll be so much fear in the market, everything will crash, including Bitcoin. At that point, a buying opportunity of like monumental proportions will be created for Bitcoin probably. So people that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for a good buying opportunity, you might want to wait until Ethereum dies, and then start buying when all the fear is occurring in the market.
And a side note in the chat, Jeremy Sager mentioned that the ERC20 token is dead and that the ERC31 token is revolutionary. And I wanted to tell you guys a side story about this ERC31 token. For a little while last year, I was working on a project called Curio Cards, and my friend Travis is still running it and still trying to get it off the ground. But Curio Cards were collectible cards on Ethereum. So they're kind of like baseball cards. They're kind of like crypto kitties, but of course, we were before crypto kitties. And it's super funny because in the ERC31 spec, it actually mentions curio cards, and there's some certain flags or something that you can do because they saw the way that Rhett wrote our curio cards, and they liked what he did, and they made it easier for you to run collectible type applications on the ERC31 tokens. And they mentioned our little project curio card, so it's pretty cool. We're a little footnote in the code of Ethereum forever now. Pretty cool for a little startup type project. So,
well, ERC3120 doesn't matter. Anything running on Ethereum is going to be in trouble in the next 3 years, probably.
very cool. Well, we'll have to see how that goes. Thanks so much for giving us a call. Give us a call anytime.
All right, sounds good. Have a good day.
All right, bye-bye. And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We'd also like to welcome Gabriel D. Vine to the show. Good morning, Gabriel. How's it going out there in England?
Good afternoon. It is nice and overcast finally. Had some hot weather visiting the in-laws. So I think that is probably not the best advice that I came into very, very briefly. I heard, to wait until Ethereum is just about to crash before you buy Bitcoin. It could take longer than 3 years. You never know how long a Ponzi scheme is going to take to blow up. So, I would say get your Bitcoin now.
And we had some very bullish discussion on Bitcoin. A lot of people are getting back in. A lot of people got back in a couple weeks ago, feeling pretty good about it. So,
when was the last time we saw a alt and Bitcoin divergence like this? Do you recall?
it's 2 or 3, 4 or 5 months ago. It seems like they're talking about Litecoin and Ethereum breaking off from Bitcoin. I don't think it happened for more than a couple of days. Even now, people they're always, and I mean, I'm there with you. We're always trying to bury these altcoins. We're always like, this is the one. I remember Ethereum went to $8 and I was like, oh, this is it. It's finally back where it should be. This is kind of reasonable. You can run a contract for $8. This makes sense to me. Then it went to $1,000. So it's like, I have no idea on these prices. Everyone right now, all the Bitcoiners are like, yeah, we killed the altcoins. And then just today, all the altcoins are up 5%. They're all up 6%. They go up more than Bitcoin. They're certainly more risky. I don't believe in them, but they seem to go up more than Bitcoin. So if you want to play some gambling, you want to take some bets, it's open for you. So
interesting. So it was actually diverging. So this latest bump, they just moved in tandem. Is that what you're saying? I haven't looked at CoinMarketCap yet.
It's always a little of a delay. So there was a couple days there where Bitcoin was going up and the altcoins were going down, and then now just today, and I don't know if it's going to last, and I don't know tomorrow or yesterday or whatever, but yeah, just today the alts have started ticking back up. Bitcoin's ticking up a little. The whole market. Remember, it's just, people win money in Bitcoin, they invest their profits in the alts. People win money in the alts, they invest their profits in Bitcoin. We're blowing up a balloon here. It's a big virtuous circle, and it's so far from just getting started. It's just so very early. So. All right, I'll just talk forever then. But everyone could call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We've been handing out flyers in Las Vegas. I saw an animated kids movie yesterday because I have Movie Pass, which is basically like the ability to see all the movies in the movie theater, but you don't have to work there. So this time I don't have to pick up any popcorn or any candy wrappers. I don't have to tear any tickets. This is sweet. It's only $10 a month. You can try Movie Pass. I hear there's some creepy things. They use your location or something when you use the app or something. But what are you going to do for $10 a month for unlimited movies? You know?
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing deal. I know about that. So I'm looking at CoinMarketCap here, and what this chart is saying to me, you're absolutely right. Just the latest 24 hours have seen the bump in altcoins. What this says to me is up until, oh, there you go. Yep. So during this week, for the most part, users were rotating is the term, rotating out of alts and into Bitcoin. And then because Bitcoin was surging a bit, some external investors came in and bought a basket today and bought everything, maybe. Yeah.
And it's just getting started. I mean, the last crazy alt run that we had, Ethereum looked like it was about triple this. It was like 1,200. Ripple was $3 a coin. Bitcoin Cash even went up over $1,000, $1,200. EOS, I think they saw 20. I want to say 20. I know Stellar saw 80 cents a coin. That was crazy.
You know, but really, all of these coins, even the ones that are more like fiat, like Stellar and Ripple, really they're all priced in Satoshis. So we really should be looking. See here, you just check out that that drop down on top of the screen. If you select BTC instead, yeah, then that gives us a much more accurate view of what's really going on here. Because really the numeraire for the crypto space is Bitcoin, not the dollar. Only the numeraire for Bitcoin maybe is the dollar still. But for these alts, I find it much, much more illuminating to see what their moves are like against Bitcoin.
We'll just have to see.
Yeah, you want to talk about like what Ethereum's, because they're really, as Ansel Lindner likes to say, the alts are riding in Bitcoin's wake. So it's, you know, they are buoyed up and down along with the Bitcoin price. But if their price moves against Bitcoin, then you know that there's a real action there, I think.
Yeah, and again, you just have to get into the crazy alts early when you can get a fair amount, a good multiplier, and then sell them when they're worth more. So it just seems to keep happening over and over again. We'll have to see. One of these times it won't happen, and everyone that will hold Bitcoin will be fine, and then the alts will all get wrecked. But we just don't know until that. So we're keeping it going here. We've got the chat going on. We've got the phone calls. You can call us on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We're getting into the 9 o'clock hour here. People are all discussing Gabriel's hair. Jeremy says he woke up with 5 girls next to him. What do you expect?
Dude, it was only 4. Come on.
It's got a... oh, I forget. There's a Huey Lewis line that's great for that. It's like something about the size of his bed. Had a very large bed, Huey Lewis. Very large other things. Let's see. Bix weird and clear. People are comedy relief. Oh, it's good that people aren't dressed in suits because I wouldn't believe them. We wear suits on Friday for the Bitcoin group. This is just an everyday show.
Does anybody else wear suits besides you, the illustrious host?
Well, I mean, we used to try to have a dress code, but libertarians rebel anytime you give them any kind of a rule or a suggestion. So they were like, no, we cannot have any rules. We cannot have any suggestions. We are libertarians. We have to negotiate like kings. I don't know. Blake had a blazer last week. I've seen people dress up. It's free gravitas is what I say. It's from Stephen Colbert. Why did Stephen Colbert dress that way? He wanted you to think that he was O'Reilly, and it worked every single time. He had that free gravitas that I'm Walter Cronkite or I'm Murrow or I'm the news. And I think it works. I think it's easy gravitas. So.
Yeah. Well, in the Bitcoin space, though, suits, kind of like in entertainment, suits speak to your function in the ecosystem. And suits in Bitcoin tend to associate with the corporate side, which is definitely seen as a bit of a what you might call anathema by some of the anarchists. Certainly, there's been a lot of tension between Silicon Valley and the Bitcoin community over the past couple of weeks. So it's a little bit dangerous. It's not necessarily considered gravitas of the right type in every ecosystem, right? Or every community.
People always say that, and they're always trying to call the death of the suit, and they're always saying the new generation of the 90s won't wear the suit, and the new generation of the aughts won't wear the suit. And then Zuckerberg does that thing where he wears a suit every day for a whole year. That was his competition with himself. I think there's something, I fought it too. I think the tie is stupid. It gets caught in machinery. It's terrible. But I think you just look money in a suit. I think just hands down, psychologically, whether you want to or not, you're a hardcore anarchist, you're a hardcore libertarian or whatever. You see a dude walk up in a suit or a lady in a suit or whatever, and you're like, that guy's put together. Like, he's put some extra time in subconsciously, even in the places that the libertarians don't believe exist. I think it still works.
Yeah.
I think it's easy money.
Oh yeah, no, it's not that it doesn't exist. Yeah, that's for sure. And actually, I've never gotten to air my theory about the cravat, about the tie, and this is a great opportunity. Or maybe I did. Actually, I might have told you about this off the air at one point. But in any case, here's my theory about the tie. You might want to get your kids out of the room because it's a little bit not safe for work, but that's okay. I'm not going to be cursing or anything. In my opinion, once we started wearing clothing, even just a loincloth, we used to see each other's genitals, and then we suddenly didn't. And I think that the bow tie and the regular tie are symbolic for elements of the male anatomy. The tie is, and the bow tie is different though. You'll notice that bow tie wearers have a different focus to them. They're like trying to be a little more subtle, and they're more about the testes. And then the full-on tie is more the straight up assertive penis side of the masculine body. That's my theory about the tie.
Well, I've got a movie line for that, as I've got a movie line for everything. But in David Mamet's State and Maine, which more people should see, it's about a movie company going to a small town to make a movie, and just every line is golden. The whole script is perfect. But there's a scene where the doctor who wears a bow tie, he says, you should never trust a man with a bow tie. Cravat's supposed to point down, accentuate the genitals. Bow tie points out, accentuates the ears. So there you go.
A little bit different. I think the bow tie symbolizes. Yeah, David Mamet. I think the bow tie symbolizes the testes, but that's a very interesting approach too. My favorite line is definitely when the director, played by the great what's his name? I always forget his name.
William H. Macy.
William H. Macy says, like somebody offers him a sandwich or pizza, is it like I can eat carbs?
That was a good one. He's on every line is perfect. He's like, save the trouble next time. Bring two. Everything is just, how are you getting along out there with these fine people? Like dykes and dogs.
Yeah.
Like dykes and dogs.
It's a 20-year-old movie too, and it was real ahead of its time. Like apparently Craig Ferguson has a tie theory similar to mine. A terrific actor, comedic actor. Apparently crypto underestimating the cleanliness of my nether regions. You wish you were my proctologist, bro. State and Maine is an amazing movie. I love how they're shooting the movie and they run out of the budget. It's a movie within a movie, right? They're shooting this movie, and so it's 1999. It's the middle. It's probably written in '98. It's the middle of the .com boom, and the story takes place in the 19th century, and there's this elaborate wood carving on the mantelpiece behind the scene, and it says bazoomer.com because it's there. They got a license. It's great. That's great.
It's a period piece, but they took product placement. We can't put a computer company in a period piece. It's so good. I love there's so many lines that are repeated throughout the film, and it's just everything's so snappy, and there's these two guys at the bar, and one day they're talking about the new stoplight and the potholes, and then the next thing they're talking about Variety magazine and which movie brought in the most adjusted gross and everything. It's a movie about movies, but you guys should check it out.
Yeah.
State and Maine.
Yeah, it's definitely like an industry flick. I think my favorite Mammoth film is actually Red Belt, which is a movie about honor. And there's a few chance situations to which this martial arts instructor reacts with his sense of honor, and it gets him in a hell of a lot of trouble. And it's really amazing to see sort of, I think it's like a masterful dramaturgical or dramatic arc, like this amazing, intricate, dramatic construction that I've analyzed it before too. It's now that I know a little bit more about filmic architecture, filmic form, and script, form, I think I want to watch it again and mark down all the different, plot beats as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't seen that one. I thought I'd seen all the Mamet movies. But of course, for the audience to refresh, David Mamet is a playwright, American, Chicago. He wrote Glengarry Glen Ross, the salesman movie that everyone always quotes, ABC, Always Be Closing, Alec Baldwin's famous scene. Then he also wrote the script for The Untouchables. He wrote the script for Wag the Dog. That's a really good movie. Spanish Prisoner, Heist, a couple of others that I forget right now. A lot of times it's about stealing something, betrayal, characters like that. I really liked Heist, for what it's worth. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but Gene
Heist is great.
Criminal.
Yeah, I think Heist is my second favorite. Yeah, amazing.
And Danny DeVito's in it. He's also a criminal, of course, and he's like, of course everyone wants it. That's why they call it money.
Oh, everyone wants Bitcoin.
Yeah, but nobody wants to call in. We're keeping those phone line open for a little bit longer. You can call us at SKYPE World Crypto Network, all one word. You could just create an account on Microsoft for free. Use their free calling service. You could run it in a VM, use a fake email address, do whatever. So, but we're checking out the chat and we're talking more about movies, I guess. I'm good for that. Spanish Prisoner is a good one. A lot of back and forth. Who's betraying who has the upper hand. It's one of those, like the Sting. It's a complicated heist movie. So a lot of Mammoth movies are complicated heist movies. Let's see. This guy says, taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 was the best. I wonder if he means the original Pelham 1, 2, 3, which I've seen, or that strange new remake, which I haven't seen. They just seem to remake everything these days. Assault on Precinct 13, all these things. RoboCop, Total Recall. Just go back and see the original. You don't need to see these crappy remakes. They don't have like when they made that remake of Psycho. What's his name? Gus Van Sant did it too. And they said he did a shot-by-shot remake of Hitchcock's Psycho, but they shot it in color. And it was like, what do you even watch the movie? So, yeah, I didn't watch it.
It seems like a bit of a, yes, Walter Matthau is brilliant. He spelled his name wrong, Paul, but yeah. So we got a question about Stellar on here. And Stellar in this week, I really don't care, and we don't make predictions like that, and especially about worthless trash. So, but it's really fun to watch Stellar and Ripple fight it out, because they were both created by the same guy. And so basically what this is like people who insist on going their own way and not coming up with a system that incentivizes everyone to join like Bitcoin did. Instead, anybody like the Bitcoin cashers, they're like, well, we're forking off because you guys are wrong. Well, what that does is groups together all the people who can't agree. And so there's just infinite forks after that. As we can see in Bitcoin Cash, there's been at least 2 contentious hard forks over there, but now there's a real break in the community, in the Bitcoin Cash or Bcash or Btrash community. So the same thing happened with Ripple. where the founder didn't like what the corporation did, broke off and created a really similar thing and tried to get people to come on board. But he's just going to take more people around that are just going to split up again. So I can't wait until the founder of Stellar, makes his next scam.
It is funny to see these same people keep going around and creating coins. I think you're talking about Jeb McCaleb, who was the original founder of Mt. Gox. He sold the website to Mark Karpellis. Then, like you say, he went on to found Ripple. Then he didn't like it. Then he founded Stellar. And I think he's still with Stellar. On the other side, we have Dan Larimer, who started BitShares, then started Steemit, and now has started EOS. One thing I would say about Stellar is they do have a contract or a deal or something with IBM, and that's given them the ability to print headlines anytime they want with Stellar and IBM in the news. If you're betting based upon hype, Stellar and IBM are going to generate some hype. So, for what it's worth.
Yeah, let's go into the conspiracy and rumor territory now. Well, first of all, not a rumor, a very well documented exchange between Dan Larimer, who admittedly was very early into Bitcoin, writing Satoshi directly back in 2010, and I believe it was. And Satoshi's one of his most famous quotes, which he said, I believe it was on BitcoinTalk.org, is if you don't have the time to research it properly, what is that? I don't know the exact quote off the top of my head. It's if you don't have if you can't understand it from here, then I'm too busy to try to convince you that it's true, because Larimer was doubting the incentive scheme of Bitcoin. And but as far as Jeb McCaleb, I have definitely heard the rumor that, and this is totally unsubstantiated, that when Jeb McCaleb sold MT Gox to Mark Karpellis, he hacked Mark right afterward for nearly all the Bitcoin that was in the Gox wallet. So immediately, MT Gox, as soon as Mark Karpellis got a hold of it, they were really far in the hole and were playing catch up the whole time until it all fell apart.
That could be true. That could be a reason why they ran those trading bots that traded against each other, trying to drive the market up, make more money with fees, maybe be able to dump their Bitcoin on the top just to get back to solvency. It is I don't know if that's true at all. We certainly don't have any evidence against Jeb or anything like that. But if you sell somebody something and then you hack it, that's really low. That's really like you have the inside information. We say a lot of times whenever an exchange gets hacked, we all say, well, it could be an inside job. It could be an organized inside job. We don't know. There's always this possibility. It looks like we've got a phone call. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Awesome. What's up, guys? My name's Jason. I'm calling from New Jersey.
Hey, Jason. What's on your mind today about Bitcoin?
Hey, man, I got some noob questions, and I turned off the chat, so I'm not sure if you guys answered. But so a Trezor, you're storing your Bitcoin on a Trezor. I want to just set it and forget it and just forget about it until 2020. 2024. Is that safe, or would you log into it periodically and update the firmware?
I don't think you have to worry that much about the firmware. Most of the firmware updates have been to add altcoins or to do bug fixes. The main thing I'd look at is trying to store your recovery seed in a safe place. What I would suggest is putting the recovery seed in a safe deposit box or in a safe or underneath your house or somewhere really secure. And that's like a backup copy of your Trezor. Then your Trezor has a passcode on it. So that keeps it secure. And you could store that in even another safe deposit box in a different town or a different bank, spread it around, or you could put it at a safe or at work or whatever. But basically, as long as you store the two halves of your key, which are the two copies of your key, basically, in safe places, your Trezor should keep your Bitcoin or your altcoins safe as long as you want until you're ready to come back to them.
All right, cool. Yeah, I saved my 24-word seed in a safe, but the PIN is just a 4-digit PIN. How secure is that? Is You know, does the Trezor get locked out when if someone finds it and starts trying to enter the 4-digit PIN?
I would think there would be a lockout, or there'd be a point where they won't let you do it. Otherwise, you could just brute force the pin. Also, I think to enter the pin, you have to use the keypad on the Trezor, and the Trezor changes the order of the numbers around, so it's better for a human to do, harder for a computer to do. If your pin is a good pin, you're pretty safe. If it's, you know, your birthday or something, it's probably not that good. But yeah, it's you know, a 6 to 1, half dozen other. It's what you have. But if you put your Trezor, the actual physical Trezor, if you put that in a safe deposit box, separate from your recovery key, at least they have to get the key to that. Then they have to get your passcode. Then they could get your money. So you can
watch out with a safe deposit box. Might not be the safest because banks can go right in there. Legally speaking, the government can go in there. So perhaps, yeah, below your house or in an actual regular safe might be better.
Well, and banks are really good at storing physical information. There have been seizures of safe deposit boxes. There have been issues in the past, but for a normal person who doesn't have a lot of money, I don't think anyone would be expecting you to have anything of value in your safe deposit box. It's mainly social security cards and birth certificates and things like that. So,
yeah. All right. So I appreciate you answering my question. So I got another noob question. So every time, so I'm on the dollar cost average plan. Every month I put $500 and just buy Bitcoin. I don't care what the price is. I just accumulate. And every time I go to get my address, it keeps changing. So what if I hold on to one of those addresses and I see how you guys do like donations, you keep your address static. How come it keeps changing on my hardware wallet? And if I use a previous address that I had was assigned from say months ago, will that still go to my hardware wallet?
well, there's a lot of. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, if I may, you should always use a new address every single time you use Bitcoin. Every single time you receive Bitcoin, you should never reuse addresses for privacy reasons. And there are also other security benefits that I don't need to go into, like a little bit of quantum resistance and some other things when you have your Bitcoin in addresses that have never been spent from. So you should always use a new address anytime you receive Bitcoin. But if you do accidentally use an old address, it will just add to the balance that's already in that address. Does that answer your question?
It does answer it. So if I use an old address, it still will go in there. So what happens if I use my recovery seed on my Trezor to get my funds? Does it combine all those addresses together, or will I only gain access to certain addresses?
Usually recovery phrases will recover every single address. Basically, there's special math that was merged into Bitcoin several years back called deterministic keys. And what that means is that given the numbers in your wallet, it will always come up with the exact same addresses, first, second, third, fourth. It'll always exactly come up with exactly those addresses. So by reconstituting your wallet, you get all your addresses.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, man, I am super excited about Bitcoin. I first got in last year, September. The lowest I bought it was 3,300. The highest I bought it was 17,000. But I'm not worried too much about the price, man. This 21 million in a world with 7 billion people, 300 million people in America. That's 7%. I mean, I am so excited about this technology. It can't be created. The Federal Reserve prints money like crazy. This is the future, man. I really hope that no one hacks it or breaks it or, you know, all the.
It's pretty unlikely, man. Yeah, I think you'd have to have like a worldwide solar storm to totally wipe out like everybody's computers, and even then, the blockchain can survive. And I've been talking a lot about quantum computing on Twitter lately about you know how eventually quantum computing will break the signature algorithms in Bitcoin, but people are already working on solutions for that, and the mathematics to create quantum computing resistant stuff already exists. So we just have to create some systems, and there's already great ideas about how to protect. For example, if you spend from an address, but there's still some Bitcoin on it, that would be, something that's vulnerable to a quantum computing attack. But it's not likely that we would face such an attack for at least a quarter of a century. So I don't think you have to worry about Bitcoin itself being hacked, luckily.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm not too worried about it. I am a little concerned, maybe confused about the developers and who's in control, because I know people can become corrupted, bought out, things like that. So,
well, here's the thing about that. Oh, what's your name, by the way? Jason. Jason. Plenty of porking out in Jersey. Great to hear from you. The way that this works, it's important to recognize the sort of game theoretical structure of Bitcoin, right? And what that requires is also a little bit of knowledge about free Libra open source software. And what that is a software that nobody charges for and encourages freedom. That's the Libra part. So basically, the idea is that anybody running a full node, which you should set up a full node, it's very easy. All you need to do is open a port on your router. And if you've got a little bit of extra bandwidth and a couple hundred gigs free on a drive, you should totally set up. You'll be improving the resiliency of the network a little bit, and you'll also be helping yourself in case you make any transactions. In any case, nobody's forcing the node operators to run the software. Nobody can do so, and all of the software is totally open source. So what that means is that any computer literate person can look at all the code. Now, that doesn't mean that bugs can't happen, and that doesn't mean that somebody can't try to put in a backdoor, but there are a lot of eyeballs on this code. And there's a famous saying in open source software that goes like this: with enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. And what that means is that it's very difficult to trick a lot of people who can see all the code. There's no hidden code. There are no what they call binaries. This is code that is not human readable, that only a machine can read. You do download a binary, but you can always check it against the source with a cryptographic signature. So there's nobody in charge. It's essentially a loose consensus of people. And it's kind of like a meritocracy where if people come in with bad ideas, they get shot down. And if somebody has a good idea, they keep coming with it and they develop it themselves. And, it's not a centralized process. So I think that's also an unfounded fear, luckily.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I mean, Bitcoin is like humanity's last hope to make this good. And I am going to look into running a full node. I mean, I could validate my own transactions is what I get from it as the benefit, but also I will help the community and I will help just contribute to something that I feel is so great. So I definitely,
yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not, it's obviously the best for you, for any given individual to run their full node, because then you can validate the transactions yourself and there's zero trust involved. Yeah, you are also contributing a little bit with some just another backup of the blockchain, of course. And then there's also the fact that you're going to be able to share blocks and feed other people's nodes with with all the block data as well, so you can contribute slightly that way. So it's you're doing a little bit for the community when you run a full node. It's great. Everyone should try to do it.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. All right, well, thank you guys, man. Keep doing what you're doing, Thomas. I'm new to your show, but I've been watching Adam Meister since I started. He's actually who got me thinking about this, and I love his shows, man. I'm pretty much echo everything he says about just forget about it. One Bitcoin's one Bitcoin, and it's great, man. I'm really excited, and I spread the word to my family and all my friends. But man, this type of stuff can really break up relationships, man.
It's rough, man. I've had family members get mad at me for telling them about Bitcoin, only to come 3 years later and have them wanting to trade it themselves and them wanting to trade all the altcoins too. It happens fast. You just got to. It's hard because everybody wants to convince someone all at once, but that never works. You just got to plant some seeds. You got to be like, yeah, that Bitcoin thing used to be $300. Now it's 8,000 or whatever. It used to be $6,000. Now it's 8,000. There's only 21 million of them. You know, just drop these little seeds in the conversation, and maybe they'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. And actually, you know what? I do want to help the community. I created a website, and I'm trying to find a way to make money off of it. My initial idea is to teach people how to use Bitcoin, spread the word why Bitcoin is needed, why it's important. But I can't really figure out a way how to make money because they can't charge Bitcoin, because if they're new people, they don't have any Bitcoin. And if I charge credit cards, they could just buy the Bitcoin, buy my service, and then do a chargeback on the credit card.
Yeah, I think the best thing I've been telling people is you've got to turn on your friends and your family. So I'd say to all your first degree friends and family, offer them the course for free. Say, I'll teach you how to set up a Bitcoin wallet. That's one course. Coinbase, you know, getting them $100 in Bitcoin or something. Have a second course where it's like, transfer your Coinbase over to Bittrex, and now you can trade all these crazy altcoins. And that's a second course, and maybe, you know, $50 a course, $100 a course, something like that. And I think that you could charge friends of friends and friends of family, and charge them in cash. Just get the cash straight up front. So
yeah, that's a good idea. And it's pretty cool, though. What do you think about Charlie Lee came out and said you should own 1 Bitcoin before you start dabbling in the alts?
I was pretty wise there. I think Charlie Lee's been wise a lot of the time. It was funny because he was so upset with people saying that he was a big bag holder on Litecoin and that he was doing all this to make money that he sold his Litecoin, and he accidentally sells his Litecoin at the very top of the tops. So now they're mad at him for selling the top of the top and for not having any Litecoin. So I think Charlie Lee's having a tough time finding a win with his community. He's a very affable guy. I think he's trying to, you know, blend with them. But everything he does doesn't work out. And you watch, yeah, he says buy Bitcoin, and the thing goes up crazy in value. The Litecoiners can't like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a crazy world. It's going to take time, man, for this to happen and people to see. But even when it does happen and it's right in front of people's faces, unfortunately, humans, we're just not going to act. We're still going to have a bunch of people that just still don't believe, rely on the government, and just probably just don't even care.
Well, remember, most people don't know anything about money or economics, how money's created, that we're off the gold standard, all of this stuff. So there's a lot of education still to come of why Bitcoin's so valuable and why it's so important. Whereas, like, I was watching an Andreas video yesterday, and he was like, go to Venezuela. They know why Bitcoin's important. They know what hyperinflation is. They know the difference between a sound currency and one that they're just printing and printing and printing. But it's going to be a long time before that happens here. Credit cards work pretty good. Savings accounts work fine here. We have insurance on a lot of our bank accounts, whether that insurance will pay out, but it makes people feel good. So the US is going to be tough for us to be the Bitcoin place for a long time, I think.
That is so true, man. I'm in my mid-30s, and I never knew about the gold standard. 1971, a dollar was taken off the gold standard. I never knew about quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, the Federal Reserve, how they print money. They're a private entity. I mean, so I just started learning all this. I'm in my mid-30s. I just started learning last September, and I'm like, where the hell have I been? I'm on YouTube, and I started watching videos of Adam Meister back in like 2013. Bitcoin's like $200. He's like, buy Bitcoin. You know, Dollar Vigilante, that guy, Jeff Berwick, he's a little shady at sometimes, but he was still promoting Bitcoin back when it was cheap. And just the information is out there, and it's always been out there. It's just up to us as humans to get it and be aware. And, you know, life is going on, man. I had kids, buying a house, working, playing video games. I was distracted. You know, I just had no idea what the heck was going on. It's crazy.
Well, there's always all these people selling you all these shadowy conspiracy theories, and there's all this other stuff. But at the very basis, at the very core of our society, is this money that is not very good money. And we lost 80% of our value in the last 100 years. Everyone kind of shrugs their shoulders and they're like, well, I'm not going to live for more than 100 years, so I guess I don't care. But it means that if your grandparents tried to hand a house down to you, that house has lost 80% of its value. That's why a lot of us probably aren't living in our grandparents' homes. Like it didn't work. And inheritance for the normal poor people didn't work because the inflation is stealing their money. And
Absolutely.
I think it's more like 98% actually.
Exactly. I was about to say.
We're getting some strange audio, Max. Double check your microphone. But we are
Yeah,
joined
Max,
by Max.
the gain's too high. The gain's too high.
Germany.
Yeah. So the dollar has lost, I think, 98.5% since the Fed launched in 1913. It's not a great record there.
No, absolutely, it is not. Is my audio better?
Uneducated about it. I talked to my brother about it, and he's telling me Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme. And I try to tell him, look up what a Ponzi scheme is, and then learn about the Federal Reserve, learn about the US dollar, learn about governments, learn about Bitcoin. Just do some research on your own. And, you know, some people are they just simply say no.
Well, and like you're saying, most people don't know how money was created. I remember in my early history classes, they kind of glossed over it. They're like, yeah, we print money, let's move on. But then when I got there in one of my college level history classes where we really covered the period, kind of a 1900 to 1930 kind of class, they went through it in detail, and I was furiously angry. I was like, what is going on? Why are they printing this money? How they deposit it in one bank, and then that bank takes it and deposits it in 10 more banks, and they take it and deposit it in 10 more banks, and none of them have any reserves. And they're all just printing this scheme, and you're like, wow, banking really seems like a big scam, like a license to steal. And why is it allowed to go on? It is. Yeah.
Obviously, it is. The entire banking system is made to increase the money supply as much as possible. And that is, by definition, theft. Because you take away the purchasing power of those who save, those who are prudent, those who plan for the future. And you give it to those that consume instantly and that seek the instant gratification, that have the YOLO lifestyle. That is what you incentivize. And then caller, sorry, I don't know your name, but it's not bad to not be educated in economics, because after all, it is a niche subject. Most call it a dismal science, which I think is a horrible name for economics because it is such a beautiful science. But after all, it is a niche subject. However, what is bad if you are not educated and then you voice a loud opinion? So if you influence people according to your false economic calculations and false economic principles, then this actually is bad, because now you are convincing people to use the dollar because you think it's a good currency. But as a matter of fact, it is not. So if you do not have to care about economics, but if you want to be educated, you should get educated before you open your mouth.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I was just naive. There's a lot of people that are and just unaware. And my name's Jason, by the way. I watched your stuff, Mises, I think, University. That's cool. That's awesome you guys are doing that. And hey, I'm on board, man. I'm on the team. I'm another member. And I'm sure there's tons of people just like me waking up every single day. So, you know, what is the best thing to do? I look at all these crazy people in America. They're protesting outside these rich corporations and things. But you know what? Those protests don't do anything. The people that are rich and they're scamming, they laugh. Yeah, you know, good. Waste your time in protest. Meanwhile, we'll still keep ripping you off and running the show. You go ahead and have your little protest. We're going to still run it. So what is the best way? Should we just slowly educate people?
Yes, Jason.
Powerful way to do it?
Jason, that's really the only way. We have to educate people. I'm working on an education project right now. Obviously, World Crypto Network has an educational focus for people. And recently, I did some thinking about, I'm developing this educational thing. And I was thinking about, like, why do so many people have trouble understanding Bitcoin, and I realized I broke it down into what I call the 4 pillars of Bitcoin knowledge. And if you lack the minimum level, which isn't that much for each, but if you lack the minimum level of knowledge in these 4 pillars, your conception of Bitcoin will not make any sense because you lack the building blocks in order to understand just the basics of how it works. And those 4 pillars are, there's 2 social pillars and 2 technological or engineering pillars. And those are, the social pillars are economics and game theory. And the technological pillars are cryptography and open source software, or FLOSS, free Libre open source software. So if you don't understand the Schelling point, which is like a game theory concept where a group of peers reaches consensus, if you don't understand the very basics of Austrian economics, supply and demand, and how and what sound money is, and how it differs from current money production, just in general overview. If you don't understand, how Linux was developed, and how open source software has taken over the world in a lot of different ways, and how protocol development works, Bitcoin. So if you lack these basic components, which I'm saying basic because they underlie Bitcoin, they're actually very advanced for most people. They're very specialized knowledge. All 4 of these are highly specialized knowledge for the layperson. No, in fact, I would say lay people on average will have 0. Programmer lay people will have 1 of those generally. Very well-versed programmers will only have 2. That's why you can see very advanced computer science professors and developers that totally don't get Bitcoin because they're missing the social pillars, right? Then you have all these economists who have no knowledge of software at all, opining about Bitcoin. Their ideas are completely fallacious because they lack these pillars. So really, we all should be focusing, just like Max has spent a week on the economic side. Super important to understand why we need Bitcoin as opposed to like how it works. This is what I think we should all be focusing on, actually, in order to get this revolution to happen and get people to stop wasting their time with trying to get voting to fix this problem, or rioting, violence, or as you pointed out, demonstrating is completely useless once you understand that the solution's already right in front of us. But it will fall apart in your mind unless you have the minimum, like you did in September. You finally had the minimum of those 4 pillars, and you've been adding and adding and adding since then. And then you came in and you said, "Hey, I have some newbie questions," and we answered your questions, which are like somewhere between noob and like sort of medium questions, and that's awesome. Everyone has their spot. I would consider myself maybe like somewhat versed. I'm definitely not an expert, and the knowledge is so incredibly deep and vast in these 4 areas, not to mention the actual like code and all the things that happen and develop new things that happen in Bitcoin, that it's really an endless well.
Absolutely. Bitcoin really does require holistic knowledge, not just of one thing, but of all those 4 pillars that you broke down. And in order to get a real picture of Bitcoin, you have to be educated at least to a minimum level in all those 4 fields. So Gabriel, I absolutely agree with your statement here. But I would like to add that education is not the only thing that we have to do. It is definitely the first thing that we have to do. But I don't think that it is going to be enough. And I do think voting can save us, but definitely not voting in the voting booth for a government vote, but voting with your feet and exiting the system. If you use Bitcoin, you choose no longer to use government money. And this means that you choose to exit the system and do something else. This is called agorism. You try to always do all the voluntary stuff on the market. And that is not just economic trade and economic transaction, but also the sharing of ideas and the prosperation and the proliferation of knowledge. That is all what happens on the marketplace to help and support your inner circle, your family and your friends. And if you do all that without the government, then you are free. Then you have successfully exited the system.
I agree, but there's some law or something that says people are going to spend bad money before good money. Who the heck wants to spend their Bitcoin when they could just spend their fiat currency?
Well,
And
that's all
it's a
right.
good thing too, because when everybody's saving their Bitcoin, it'll be worth a lot more. It'll be an even better vehicle for saving and an even harder and sounder money. Spending is not spending is the Keynesian statist approach to money. It's the replacement for real theories. And that because that you have to come up with fallacies in order to support fiat regimes. And so this whole spending paradigm where we need to get consumers to spend more and stimulate the economy, that's fallacious. It's a fallacy, and it will never, as you can see with fiat, it continuously loses money. Spending money makes it worth less. The more people spend it and get other things for it, the less it's worth. So you shouldn't be worried about spending. But also, it's not a law. There's two laws, and they're totally in opposition to each other. There's Gresham's law and Tyr's law. Tyr's law says that eventually, if everybody spends their bad money, it'll go to nothing, and the good money will have to take over. So that's the flip side.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
The future.
And further, maybe to add to this, is that fiat money, as Gabriel said perfectly, incentivizes consumption, right? And it incentivizes this YOLO lifestyle to live only once, to spend all you have, to consume more than you have, to go in debt. And this creates, in the long term, such a bad society, just also morally and ethically speaking, where all they want to do is live now. And they do not care about others. They do not care about the future and future generations. That is horrible. There's a great lecture by Jörg Guido Hülsmann called The Cultural Effects on Fiat Money that really goes into this.
Yeah, I watched that video about 3 years ago, and it just blew my mind so hard. And I'm not surprised to see it blowing other people's minds. And like now it's become like this landmark. And I actually did a presentation that I'll be releasing probably next month. That was the cultural consequences of a digital sound money paradigm. So basically, I took the reverse. I used his presentation as a jumping off point, and illustrated and explored the opposite effect. So basically what we're going to be transitioning back into a sound money culture, except it'll be even more sound and even harder. And we have a lot harder technology. So the result of Bitcoin being the reserve money of the world will be much more extreme in the opposite direction. It's going to be pretty interesting.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your call. I really appreciated well, whatever you want to call them, noob questions or whatever. We need more of those. Everyone has those questions. Everyone wants to know the answers. But I thank you for asking them today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on, man. It was my pleasure talking to you guys, and I look forward to a bright future, man. I'm super passionate about this, and I'm going to do my part, man. I'm going to look into running that full node. So have a great day, guys.
Sounds great, man. Thanks so much. Give us a call anytime. And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Maybe before the next call, I wanted to go back to what Gabriel was saying about the 4 different points. I thought that was a really good way of explaining the kind of knowledge that you need to understand Bitcoin and why it's so difficult for some people to understand it. And I just wanted to draw us back. I had that another call. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas and Gabe. It's Jose calling from Mexico.
Hey, Jose. How's it going? I just want to finish that thought first about Andy. What I was going to say is that Andy, for all of his economic knowledge, which I totally respect, and he can back that up, doesn't have the open source knowledge. So when it came to just looking at the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Rhodium, Andy wasn't able to see the red flag that there isn't a GitHub. The people in the chat told him that there's a GitLab and that they're going to release the code, but that they haven't released the code and they're not developing it in an open source fashion where they put the code out there and people see it. they're developing it behind closed doors now with a plan to release it later, which is a little open source, but not that much. So you can see how Andy, and not bagging on Andy here, I'm just saying that he has a deficiency in that one area. He needs to study open source more, and hopefully that would help him understand these differences, and that a lot of people have this, like Gabriel's saying. Some people don't understand cryptography. Some people don't understand game theory or economics or whatever. And if you have 3 out of the 4, you can almost see it, but you can't quite see it. You've got to have 4 out of the 4 covered.
Welcome, Jose. What part of Mexico are you calling from?
The coast.
Excellent. I spent some time in Mexico last year and I absolutely fell in love. The people, the culture, the nature, the history, the food, everything was really, I was really shocked at how extremely different it is from the United States, and just how different the culture and the people are. I was amazed. I loved it.
Yeah, it is really beautiful and cool. And I also would recommend, again, everybody, if you can get out of America and go live somewhere else, you got to try it. You'll love it.
Very cool. And what's on your mind today, Jose, about Bitcoin? You liking the rise? Been good for you?
Yeah, it's great. And I was really excited to hear Gabe talk about he's working on an educational project, and reminds me of a tweet I sent to Jimmy Song like 6 months ago when we were at 10,000. That's when I and my best friend resigned from our jobs. I didn't leave until 3 months later, but so I emailed or I tweeted to Jimmy about how he's doing all these great programmer, but they're usually like weekends, right? I think it's just a weekend, not even week longs. Okay, let me get to the point. And I'm sure I'm not the first one to think of this, but like, what about Bitcoin University? Even on a real small scale, maybe in Prague, where people can go and we have some courses set up and we can learn these 4 pillars and learn how to code. I'm just like a total noob. I've learned so much, but there's so much to learn. And like, I'm not even running a full node yet just because I'm so busy with all this other stuff. But wouldn't that be cool? What's up with that?
Well, there's been some, there was like a blockchain university in San Francisco for a while, but it was more like take a course for a week or take a course for a weekend, like you're saying. There's been some online resources, things like the Nakamoto Institute has some pretty good papers and some pretty good explorations of Bitcoin, but none really like a straightforward class or a structure. Some of the colleges have offered Bitcoin courses, MIT, Harvard, things like that. What do you think?
There is a fantastic university course that I partook in the University of Nicosia, as in Cyprus. And it is run, upon others, by the one and only Andreas Antonopoulos. So you have a chance of studying under Andreas, which, I mean, come on, it's fantastic. You get several scripts that really go through through all the basics of Bitcoin that you would like to know. It starts with the Byzantine generals problem and then goes all the way to Bitcoin coding. So it is really exhaustive. And then you will have later, every week, there will be a live Q&A session where you can ask questions to Andreas in advance in a separate chat, and then do some live questions as well. So this is really a fantastic program. I can only encourage you to take it. It's absolutely free. It's a massive open online course, I think it's called, MOOC. And by the way, you get 1 certificate that you partook this university if you make the exam, and you get it on the Bitcoin blockchain. So that is fantastic. So I have a university certificate somewhere on the Bitcoin blockchain, and that's just one other cool use case of an immutable database.
And it looks like we've got the link to that YouTube in the chat. You can check that out right there. Chat's reloading for me now. What do you think, Jose? Are you going to try out the university in Cyprus?
I can't believe I didn't know about it, but I think you said it's an online thing. It is really in Cyprus? But anyways, that is really cool, and everybody should know about that. I can't believe I didn't. But yeah, just to get back to my idea, I think this quality of like having like an actual place where, like in Europe, like if it was like, like what's that place called? Patron P's, 2 P's in Prague. You know what I'm talking about, right? The place.
Paralini Polis. Paralinzi
Polis or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that place is, I don't know if you'd call it a mecca, but if you're like a Bitcoiner in that area, it's probably like a pretty key location, right? A lot of stuff going on there. And maybe there's the same thing in San Francisco or New York, maybe some meetups and stuff. So I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just lonely out here in the boondocks in Mexico.
Well,
Yeah,
you
but
gotta start your own meetup. It's not too late. If there's not a meetup near you, I give you permission to start one.
Yeah, we all need Thomas's permission though. So if you don't have Thomas's permission, then don't do it. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
Of course, do it.
Permissioned meetups.
But what I would like to add, Jose, great point that you brought up, that it's nice to have peers around you, especially when doing education. And I experienced that firsthand live at the Mises University, which of course you can attend online and watch all the lectures online. But honestly, the best conversations that you're going to have all year are going to be with those smart students and smart professors. And if you really want to get educated about some specific topic, especially such a complex topic like economics or even more complex, Bitcoin, then having several students with you and professors there where you can ask questions and debate them and discuss them is vitally important. And it's missing in today's culture, absolutely.
I think universities would be great places to connect with people that are interested in the economics and the political activism of it and making money, and traders, and also coders.
And we're also kind of doing an online university here. We answered the questions earlier about the Trezor. We'd be glad to answer anyone else's basic Bitcoin questions. If you have them, you could call in. And not only is this Bitcoin's marketing department, maybe it's Bitcoin's university too. I think we can handle both of them. We're going to need more people. We're going to need more hours of shows. But I think if we all work together, that we could do that.
We can and we will.
There we go. All right, Jose, any other questions or thoughts about Bitcoin this morning? Maybe your opinion on the Guardians of the Galaxy thing, or am I buying too many typewriters? What do you think?
I don't know, but now that I got Gabe and our other friend from the Mises Institute, who's really cool, now that I got you guys on the line, I'd love to ask you to please check out my counter wrench attack protocol and my new article about passphrases. And please, I'd love to get your ideas about that. But thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Where can they check those out, Jose?
Oh, sorry, Tom?
Jose, where can we find that? What, you want to hit us on Twitter, or where can we find those things?
Yeah, I'll send you a link on Twitter, but I'm on Medium, and my name is Peace and Love. My Twitter is Oceans for All. And yeah, is that okay?
Great. Yeah, write us on Twitter. My DMs are open, so please hit me up, okay?
I will totally hit you up, Gabe, because I think we have a lot in common. But again, I think this is a cool idea, and maybe we can, have more conferences. And what's a conference? It's like a short-term school, right? We need some Bitcoin University where people you can always go there. There's always something going on. I think that would just be like really, really cool for the community. And for young developers that want to get into Bitcoin, it's hard to do it by yourself and remote, and it's no fun, It's like, I want to be with a bunch of guys and code in and then go out and observe and then code more and learn about. Wouldn't that be cool? So, everybody keep up the great work. Lots of love for Mexico. And
thanks, Jose. We'll see you on the beach.
All right. Thanks so much, Jose. Sorry we had some bad audio at the end of Jose's call there, but very interesting stuff. They're talking about Bitcoin meetups in the chat. If you have a Bitcoin meetup, go ahead and advertise it here. You can tell us about it, put the link through, or just say what time and where the meetup's at. And yeah, you don't need my permission to start a meetup, but it helps, right? You're like, that guy said that I had permission, so I'm going to do it. It's the magic slippers or whatever, right?
Wow.
Caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from? No audio yet, but you had audio yesterday, so you might be able to turn it off and on again. I know we talked to you a couple days ago, maybe. Or just give us a call back and we'll try it again.
Hey there, can you hear me?
There it is. Now we can hear you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Great. This is Dave from Albuquerque, New Mexico, a little north of the other fella. Hey, it's great to see Max and Gabe and everything. I did watch a lot of the Mises Institute and video presentations, and they were great.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to call in and talk about the Lightning Network, and I was wondering if you might be interested in, at some point, not necessarily today, but we could step through a Bitcoin node, Lightning node business model sort of notion. And I was thinking maybe we could talk about a model and try to learn, at a higher level, and then people could ask questions and drill down in. But if we used the World Crypto Network, if I were to if you wanted to get set up to accept donations in Lightning, something like that we might use as a use case. What do you think about something like that?
Well, what you can use already is WooCommerce, WOO Commerce, which is a plugin for any WordPress site that you have. And with a simple plugin, you can already accept as many Lightning transactions as you want. It will connect. You will need a Lightning full node, which does require a Bitcoin full node if you want to do a trustless, which you should. And you should also run a Bitcoin full node, no question. But you can do it today, and it's really as simple as installing a WordPress plugin.
I do think right now there is a little bit of a disconnect. You don't exactly get paid for running a Bitcoin node, and you also don't really get paid for running a Lightning node. There might be a way where by lending your Lightning, by letting other people use it as part of the transaction chain, you might get a fractional bit of interest there. We have a guy we're going to talk on Wednesday more about his articles and his ideas about getting an interest rate for the Lightning Network. So in that way you could, but you'd have to have the Bitcoin to lend out. So right now running nodes is really more of a hobbyist thing. It's something you do to support the network. And if you were a large exchange or something, you have a lot of transactions to confirm, you'd actually benefit from running a node. So it's a bit of a tough place for normal consumers to start. But if you're a hobbyist and you want to try a node, Chris Ellis has done a lot of videos here on the World Crypto Network about the old Raspberry Pi nodes. I think those are still good because they didn't double the block size, et cetera, which would have broken all the Raspberry Pi nodes. So there's a lot to learn about nodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in my experience, it's great that you have someone coming on Wednesday. I'll be sure to check that out. In my experience, you're correct. I have the WooCommerce set up and accepting Lightning through my just regular storefront.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Yesterday. Go ahead.
I'm saying that is amazing. Congratulations. Sorry for interrupting you. Please continue.
No, that's all right. The way the business model works, I explained this to somebody recently. Yes, everything you said, I totally agree with, because it is more of a hobbyist thing. There's enough complexity in my own blog article on how to do both, set up a Bitcoin node and a Lightning node on top of it. There's enough complexity to it that, it's like really, you have to be system administrator oriented to be able to do that in the first place. You have to at least have the gumption to say, hey, I'm willing to try at the command line. And and the vast majority of people really don't want to do that. They have no interest. And but to get on with the notion of how to make money using a Bitcoin node itself, I don't know of any way to directly make money with it. I agree. It's really used for the purposes you've said, verifying your own transactions or other people's transactions, that kind of thing. And some of them have wallets, and you store your money there, and it acts like a regular wallet. I don't know if I would recommend storing your money, on a production machine like that, that's public. But hey, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole nother security or privacy, thing. when you have basically, let's say a merchant, it's highly advantageous to the merchant to go ahead and run a Bitcoin node and Lightning node. Okay, and from now I'm just going to say a Lightning node and mean both. It's very important for them to do that if they're going to have any kind of volume, because the fees for it are so tiny, especially at this point, but they will for, you know, we're talking tiny fractions of a penny for Lightning transactions right now. And when you open a channel, you've locked your Bitcoin funds on chain as in use by the Lightning Network. And then you open channels with some of that pool of money, okay? And then these channels are open with other nodes, okay? And the main difference between a regular, you know, like Lightning wallet and a Lightning node is that the Lightning wallet doesn't have the Bitcoin node and the Lightning node running in the background. It has to connect to a Lightning node to be able to accurately do anything, estimate fees, to be able to, you know, to work actually at all. So, however, it doesn't have all the you know, the data being stored and the processing that's going on in the background to verify a block or to, you know, split up a hash time locked contract, which is what we have in Lightning. You know, let me pause here and try to refocus and listen to what you guys have to say too.
All right. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's good to run a node. It would be good for merchants. It's good for normal people, but it's not quite there yet. It's difficult enough, I think, to get people to run a wallet. Just put a wallet on your phone, get started there. I think running the nodes is still going to be kind of a hobbyist thing. I think it would be one of the last days of Bitcoin University when they teach you how to run a node. It wouldn't be one of the first days. Gabriel?
Well, when running a Bitcoin main chain full node, then you verify each and every single transaction that has ever happened since 2009, right? So you will verify everything. With a Lightning full node, what you will only verify is the Lightning transactions that you and your peers in the channel did. And the interesting thing about Lightning is that when you are only sending money, then you have nothing to lose. Because if I have 1 Bitcoin, Thomas has 2 Bitcoins, and I send him 0.1 Bitcoin over Lightning, then my new balance will be 0.9 and his balance will be 2.1. Now, if he publishes his old state, which would be 2 for Thomas, 1 for me, well, that would actually be good for me. So if Thomas wants to steal from me, quote unquote, by publishing an old state of the Lightning channel, that would be stupid on his part, and game theory tells us that he will not do this. So when sending Bitcoin on Lightning, you do not have to run a Lightning node. But when receiving Bitcoin, so as Thomas did in this example, he has to check if I'm trying to steal from him. Because I could theoretically publish the old state of the channel, which would give me 1 Bitcoin and him 2. So I will gain back the 0.1 Bitcoin that I previously have sent to him. So you as a merchant have to always have a Lightning node that is connected to a Bitcoin full node in order to be sure that your customers are not taking their money back. But when you are the customer, then you really do not have to run a full node when you're only sending it.
Well said, Max.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the call, and I enjoyed talking about full nodes. Anything else on your mind about Bitcoin this morning?
No, sir. Great show, and I'll maybe call in again. Thanks for taking my call.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Dave, for your call. Give us a call anytime. And
Dave,
if you'd like to call us now, you can call us
Dave,
on Skype at World Crypto Network. Go ahead, Gabriel. We lost the call, but if you can talk to him, he'll hear it afterwards.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt. Dave, looking forward to an update on how your setup is going. Call us in a couple of weeks or something when you've got some more to report. We'll be following it closely. This is pretty cutting edge stuff, as Max pointed out, and Thomas too. I have been really interested in following Nick Batia's work. He's been writing some posts. He's been talking to me privately. I've been giving him some feedback on it, what little I can, and he's been doing some research into Lightning, specifically from an economic standpoint, because Lightning is the first sort of dependable way to earn interest, so to speak, on an investment in Bitcoin that's really built atop Bitcoin. So we're not talking about like a centralized company that happens to have a Bitcoin lending, or maybe like a cloud mining scheme or whatever. There's all sorts of ways to make money with centralized systems, but Lightning is a decentralized system, and this is a very new financial construct. And so Nick comes from a financial standpoint, and for him, he's thinking of the Lightning Network as providing a basis for financial infrastructure by setting a standardized interest rate that you can earn on your investment. In other words, you stake, say, 1 Bitcoin onto the Lightning channel. While it's in that channel, it's being used for moving transactions back and forth, so you can't use it for other means. You've technically invested it into this ecosystem, and he's finding that the well designed, the Lightning nodes that are set up with good, what can I say, settings, properly optimized, you might say, are earning currently 0.4% on an annualized basis, which for a sound money is really good. That's completely awesome. That's probably as high as anybody is earning at this time, because that's a figure from trying to remember whose node it was, but in any case, it was just over 0.4%, which is really good. I mean, Bitcoin. It's one thing to get fork dividends, but the fork is technically stealing some of the value. So you're just kind of gambling that Bitcoin will win, the fight against, a sort of a hard fork coin, but to earn interest on a sound money like this, it's like if you were to put gold in a special chamber that you needed to plug into the internet and into electricity, and a year later you've got 1.0004 grams instead of 1 gram of gold. That's pretty awesome. So basically, Batia's sort of contention is that once we have a reference rate throughout the industry, and this is probably going to take at least 2 years, if not more, but once we have a sort of an idea of what an average or a good a Lightning node can earn over time, then you'll be able to set up businesses and other things on top of, and you'll be able to create derivatives on top of Bitcoin that is locked into, or you could say freed up on the Lightning Network, or locked into a node as a staked amount, and you could then borrow against that as collateral. You can do all sorts of really interesting things because it's part of this decentralized system. And so instead of sort of the fraud, the huge amount of fraud and waste and malinvestment that we see in the fiat financialization paradigm, in a Lightning reference rate paradigm, we could conceivably see some cryptographically secured investment vehicles that have technically no traditional counterparty risk. They only have the security and decentralized counterparty risk of Lightning, which is extremely easy to control in comparison to today's third-party counterparty risks.
Yep, and we'll be having Nick on the show Wednesday night at 7 o'clock here on the World Crypto Network. This is our second interview with Nick. If you want to go back into the archives and check out the first one, search for Nick Bhatia on the World Crypto Network, or maybe the title or something about Lightning and interest rates, something like that. But yeah, very interesting articles, and we look forward to talking about it in more detail with Nick Wednesday night. We still have the phone calls open if you want to call us on Skype at World Crypto Network. We'll try to keep the show going. I don't really have any topics left to talk about. Gabriel, Max, do you guys have anything you want to talk about? Or we could just go back to describing my cherry red IBM Selectric #1 typewriter that will be coming soon. Did you know IBM didn't put a #1 on the Selectric? It only became the Selectric 1 when they released the Selectric 2. Fascinating. Typewriter humor.
Well, that is fantastic, and old names are always interesting. Absolutely, and naming a product is actually quite difficult. What I do for most of my companies is I just give them Harry Potter spells because they kind of sound nice.
Wait a minute, did you happen to create a protocol called Mimblewimble?
There it is.
How did you know?
The creator of Grin. It's Tom Riddle. It's Voldemort himself right here.
I wish I was that smart.
Yeah, I'm going to name my next company Max Hillebrandt.
I think that kind of sounds scary, so I probably shouldn't.
That'll work. People are checking in the chat. They're calling for a prediction or a story of the week. That's a good way of saying the show should end.
Nice. I have to run anyways. So it was wonderful being on.
All right, let's go towards the end. Gabriel, give us something in closing. Maybe tell us about your work or what's going on. Something would be great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned this briefly earlier, the quantum computing stuff. I've been trolling a little bit on Twitter because I actually, so Jimmy Song put out a little bit of like a request for some like questions, and I asked him, given that quantum computing exists, how would Bitcoin upgrade its protocol? And I was pretty disappointed in Mr. Song's. I was really excited that he picked my question, and I was a little disappointed in Jimmy's responses, even though he gave 3 very interesting videos. He mostly, I really liked, obviously, how he described why quantum computing, how it relates to Bitcoin and cryptography, and that was awesome. But he mostly addressed the fact that quantum computing is very difficult and unlikely to happen anytime soon, which I totally agree with. But my question was, given that it is like imminent, then what do we do? And I was a little disappointed that he didn't find any information about this. And today, David Harding actually yesterday was tweeting about a proposal by a gentleman whose name escapes me, and I'm not going to bother looking it up, but a very interesting proposal because what happens with quantum computing is the hash algorithm is only weakened by half of the it's not 50%, but it's 2 to the 128 instead of 2 to the 256. So still very difficult to break with a quantum computer. Not that big of a deal. Might have to change it at some point in the future. But the signature algorithm that we use would definitely be broken by Shor's algorithm or another algorithm if we had functional quantum computers. And I was talking to Blake about this on direct message on Twitter last night, and he's also very doubtful. I'm super doubtful that we can come up with this very soon either, but technological advances are classic fat tail events, and you can always have a situation where there's a black swan and you have an unexpectedly early arrival of a technology, and we should always be prepared for that eventuality. And that's my point here. I would say it's not as important as all the privacy features that are currently getting merged into Bitcoin, but I would say it's one of the really important security things to happen after that. In any case, proposals already out there that David Harding was turning us on to on Twitter. Really cool idea. Basically, what you need if you have any public keys or Bitcoin addresses, as we call them, that you've spent from but still have balance on them. In other words, if the public knows that there's a certain amount of Bitcoin on it and they know the public key associated with the address, I think that's how it works. Those addresses will be vulnerable to being hacked, completely hacked. And so what this proposal suggests is, this is what I was actually thinking. I was thinking there's got to be a way to wrap up addresses in some sort of cryptographic cutesy thing using the blockchain that we already have that's dependable for now. And the idea is that we'd have to merge a few totally uncontroversial changes into Bitcoin, or additions to allow this. But basically, you would put a special transaction into the blockchain that wouldn't trigger until until the quantum resistant algorithm soft fork or hard fork is already in the cards or whatever. But basically, you're kind of encapsulating your vulnerable public keys inside of a special transaction that immediately sends it to your new quantum resistant address as soon as the code hits the node, something like that. My understanding is a little bit sketchy at this time, but it's basically a way to set up an automated transaction, and this is something that can be done automatically. So when your wallet gets the upgrade of this quantum protection code, it would scan through your addresses and then ask you and say, hey, can I send out this transaction to the Bitcoin network? And then on the other end, once the resistant algorithm is being merged in or being activated on the network by nodes, then those nodes are going to be searching back to the very first occurrence of your vulnerable private key, and then as soon as that has been broadcast, it will go into the next block into a quantum resistant address. And so as far as I can tell, it sounds like we might be able to do a soft fork to quantum resistant algorithm, which would be amazing because hard forks can be contentious, although a quantum resistant hard fork is not likely to be that contentious. So in any case, there are plans afoot. People are working on it. The difficult part is this part that I'm describing. Quantum resistant algorithms are already out there, and it just requires some testing and some mathematical work, but those actually already exist. So basically the theory behind quantum computing is already very well understood. It's the practicality, it's the engineering of creating an actual quantum computer that is still quite rudimentary.
Hey, great points, Gabriel. That was really, really smart. And I think I have to listen to that a couple more times in order to really understand it, how to do the software upgrade, soft fork upgrade. But definitely really, really interesting. I just like to
check out my Twitter timeline, and you'll be able to find some links that will lead you down the rabbit hole to a lot more detail of Alice and Bob in that situation.
Okay, really nice. I will do that. Thank you very much. What I would like to emphasize here, though, is that ever since 2009, if you use Bitcoin correctly, it is quantum resistant because the public key is never pushed on the blockchain, but rather the hash of the public key. So we hash it twice with two different hashing algorithms, SHA-256 and base 32 encoding, right? I think.
Back 32, is that what you're talking about?
Back 32.
No, that's an address format. I think that the public keys are just double hash with SHA-256, I believe. Isn't that what it is? Or are you talking about RMP 160?
Yeah, I think I am. Well, regardless, because they are hashed, they are quantum resistant. Because quantum computers do not fully break hashing algorithms. They only break elliptic curve algorithms. So Satoshi was really smart, double hashing the public key. So that was really, really nice of him. And if you do not reuse addresses, this means that your public key, the quantum not resistant, the quantum superior public key, you publish that only to the blockchain when you empty the account. So even if we would have the quantum resistance, the only empty accounts could be stolen from, which is of course nonsensical, right? And I would like to add that thanks to segregated witness, which was one of the best upgrades ever, we now, I think, have the chance of changing any type of signature signing algorithm with a soft fork. And I do believe, but I'm not certain on this, maybe you two have a bit of an input there, is that Schnorr signatures and BLS signatures actually are quantum resistant already. So if we would do an upgrade to that, also for efficiency purposes, we would have quantum resistance already. Is that the case?
I've heard that. I don't know for sure. Quantum mechanics, automobile mechanics. Gabriel was talking, and I was thinking of that part in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure where they're like, after this is all over, we should go back in time, steal your dad's keys, and put them here. And then the keys just appear, and they're like, oh, I guess we did steal our dad's keys. So that's all I know about time travel. Gabriel, more on Max's question there. I don't know. Schnorr signatures making things quantum resistant already. You're still muted.
That's pretty interesting. So you're talking about using a quantum resistant algorithm in order to make Schnorr signatures. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yes, or more the question that the Schnorr signatures, which we would put into Bitcoin, there's already a BIP out there. I do think that by standard, they are quantum resistant because they do not use an elliptic curve. And elliptic curves are what actually quantum computers can break, as far as I understand.
Right. For all I know, the Schnorr algorithm is also quantum vulnerable. So I don't actually know about that. I can't speak to that. And also, I think I said the other algorithm wrong. You can tell my knowledge. I'm not an expert in this. That's for sure. I think I said R something, but I think it's RPIM 160. In any case, yeah, there's three main cryptographic primitives in Bitcoin, and that's one of them. Yeah, whatever.
Okay. I just pulled it up. No, ECDSA and EC Schnorr, as well as related schemes like EDDSA, all belong to the class of elliptic curve cryptography. Their security is based on the assumption that the EC discrete logarithm is unfeasibly hard to compute. This assumption is not true if a sufficiently strong general-purpose quantum computer would exist. So apparently, no Schnorr signatures are not inherently quantum resistant because they still use a elliptic curve.
Going back over what Gabriel said earlier about the donation addresses being insecure, there's some kind of thing where if I've used the private key to spend my donations, then the private key's been on the network, and now it's easier for them to guess the private key. That's why you never want to reuse your addresses if they had a quantum
public
computer.
Key. Yeah, the public key has been on the network, and with a quantum computer, you'll be able to derive the private key from the public key, which is impossible to do now.
Nice. Got to get me one of those quantum computers. Got to get me an upgrade here. I just got this computer. Damn it. But Max, do you have anything in closing? Anything that you're going to work on in the next week, or maybe just tell us about the Mises University or something? Go ahead, Max.
Well, just to summarize how awesome the Mises University is, on a scale from 0 to potato, I would definitely say apple. So it was amazing. And I can only suggest all of you to check out the live lectures available for free at Mises Media on YouTube. And of course, also the live videos that we did here in the World Crypto Network to bring you all the students and the professors. Which, by the way, we had Jörg Guido Holzmann on the show. Like, this is mind-blowing. I mean, this is fantastic. He's such a great guy. And I really enjoyed doing the interview with him. What will I be doing the next week? I do have a bunch of stuff for my consulting firm here in Germany. We will do a couple really nice interviews in a professional studio, but they will be on German. So unfortunately, you guys cannot listen to them unless you do want to study some German. But we will also organize, or we co-organize, the Sonidos Open Air Festival, which will happen in Weingarten, which is in southern Germany. It's a techno musical festival, and we will have, of course, a Bitcoin booth where we try to onboard as many people as possible. And just one fun thing that you can do, we will, using the Bitcoin counterparty protocol, or sorry, the colored coins protocol, we will create a Sonidos token to just hand out to people. We'll not have any nice big value, but we're just going to do it. Why? Because it's fun and we can. So, bring some fun into your meetups. Do something interesting.
There we go. And just as you mentioned meetups, I've been handing out flyers in downtown Las Vegas. I made a little video of me and that Mad Bitcoins guy handing out flyers. And I released the PDFs and even the Photoshop files of the flyers. So if you want to make your own or edit them, print them out, give them out in your town square, all you have to do is film yourself on your iPhone or your Samsung, send me the video on Twitter. I'll retweet it. I'll feature it on this show. If I can get 2 or 3 of them on, I'll do a montage of them. I'll put some Mad Bitcoins music behind there because copyright-free music, that's the way. Don't use that dang good-sounding music because, yeah,
open source everything.
They took all my ad rights for my video yesterday, and they took all my ad rights for my talk show yesterday, and I'm okay with it. I'll take the hit. The music really, it was background music, and it sounded tinny and awful, you know, like recorded out of the air. And I replaced it with the good music. I had to do it. It just sounded so much better. But that's what I've been working on this week. Just going to show you the QR code one more time. The price of Bitcoin is 8,244. They said it was going up while Gabriel was talking. The WCN boost right there. And as always, you can donate Bitcoin or any of the altcoins they have on Trezor to this show with the QR codes on your screen right now, or support us on the Patreon for Mad Bitcoins or WCN. You can subscribe with your credit card as little as $2 a month to help support the shows. And we'll be back again tomorrow with another Bitcoin talk show in the morning. Then we've got the interview with Nick Bhatia later in the day, 7 p.m. Pacific time. And if you want to check out our previous interview with Nick about the interest rates and the Lightning Network, like Gabriel said, he has a business background and he's bringing that business knowledge to us in the Bitcoin space. So thanks so much to Nick, and we look forward to talking to him again tomorrow. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.